My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. Just want a little breakfast.
Hello!
Hello, hello!
Welcome to the Breakfast Punx podcast. This is a podcast about coffee, donuts, DIY punk and pretty much anything else we want. Brought to you by Sham City Roasters and Deadbeat Donuts. From Hastings, I'm Dave.
And I'm Siobhan.
And welcome to episode 3.
Hello, hello.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about our top 10 80s pop songs. And we're also going to be talking about a film called Lust in the Dust.
As always, we've got some nice treats here, food and coffee. Food-wise, we got some of these vegan bacon rashers, or bacon-style rashers, from a company called Green Kitchen. They're in Brighton. They run a cafe in Brighton, which serves loads of vegan stuff, and they're reopening for takeaway this weekend, so if you're in Brighton, get down there. Mm-hmm. We bought their rashers from a little shop in Hastings called Trinity Whole Foods, which sells loads of like vegan, vegetarian kind of ingredients and things, all organic. It's a cooperative.
It's a really cool place.
Yeah, it's just really nice. So yeah, we popped down there and got some of these little bacon rashers and had ourselves a bacon sandwich.
On some rather nice bread.
Oh yeah, that's sorry, completely forgetting half of the other stuff. We got our bread from Oak Bakery in St Leonard's, which is the bakery that used to supply our bread at Sham City Roasters Cafe when we had it.
Basically, if you ever had a grilled cheese sandwich from us in the 3.5 years that we were there, you had it on the Oak Bakery's bread.
Yeah.
But they also sell some nice coffee in there.
They do sell Sham City Roasters coffee in there. So
get yourself down there if you're in St Leonard's.
So we're plugging tons of places all of a sudden.
Well, with that in mind, I've got another one. We're also drinking some coffee. And this episode we're drinking some Dear Green Social Bite Blend. Dear Green are based in Glasgow. They've been going for quite a while. This is, I think, the first time I've ever actually got their coffee. I really like this for a couple of reasons, really. It's a blend, which is quite rare, I think, with specialty coffee roasters. And I'm a bit of a fan of blends, hence why Sham City Roasters does a couple of blends. And they've done a really good job of it. It's really good. And also, some of the proceeds are going to a charity to help with ending homelessness in Scotland.
Oh, nice.
So it's really cool.
On that note, I should also mention that Green Kitchen, they give a lot of their proceeds to the Retreat Animal Sanctuary, which is down here in Sussex somewhere, I can't think where, but really good. They have their own cafe as well, which is amazing, but I've never been there. But I'm sure it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So anyway, enough babble. Let's start with the song before we get carried away. So this first song is by a band called the Cutaways, and the song is called Dead Name. They're from Brisbane in Australia. Yeah. Is it Brisbane or Brisbane?
Brisbane.
I'm going Brisbane. Who knows?
Breeze.
Oh, I can't do anything. Okay, so this is the Cutaways. They're from Brisbane, Australia. This song is from their album Wax Woman that came out in 2019. They're a really great band, and yeah, we're a bit lucky to be able to play them on this, I think. So this is the Cutaways with Dead Name.
I'm getting sick of feeling like nothing's getting done. Oh, I'm getting sick of feeling overwhelmed. On the defensive,
them. That was the Cutaways from their album from a couple of years ago now. I was going to say last year, but it's 2021, isn't it? It's one of my favourite albums of 2019. I absolutely love that band. The majority of them used to be in a band called Army of Champions.
Oh my god, that song. We used to have one of their songs on the cafe playlist.
Most of their songs on the cafe playlist.
And it was so good.
The song that you're referring to is called Anchorless.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
You should definitely check them out. But yeah, definitely check out the Cutaways, the album. They've got a couple of newer songs than that up on their Bandcamp at the moment. And yeah.
Brilliant.
Go and listen to them.
Yay.
So now, I think it's probably about time for...
Good evening, everyone, and the highlights of the news this Thursday.
Breaking news is part of this job.
You are fake news.
This is what's happening in your world tonight.
It's a fucking news.
New.
The fucking news. Yeah, absolutely right. I'm going to kick off with something that I found out this week, which is that the fanzine Punk Planet, which was a really amazing fanzine from the 90s and I think early noughties, has just been put up in its entirety online for free. There's 80 issues of it. Punk Planet was really important to me when I was sort of a kid. I have absolutely no idea how I stumbled across it, but it was kind of in the same realm as Maximum Rock and Roll and Flipside and things like that. But it was much more of a sort of political thing, and it had a lot more. It was more about like punk culture as opposed to just punk. But it did have a lot of really great interviews. There's a really good book. I can't remember the name of the book at all, but that's like a collection of their interviews, and it's got everyone from like Ian McKay to Kathleen Hanna to just loads and loads of people. But yeah, it's so the entirety of it, all 80 issues, is all up online, which is just an incredible resource, and I would really recommend checking it out. Obviously, some of it will probably be dated at this point, but it was just such a great fanzine. I say fanzine; it was really professional and proper.
Where did you say it was based?
Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I think.
And 80.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I think it was bi-monthly, and they got really, like I say, they got really professional about halfway through that print run. It started off looking like Maximum Rock and Roll, or probably even not that, to be honest. But yeah, by the time it finished, it was like a proper magazine. I think you could buy it in
Smiths?
I want to say no. Well, no, it wasn't available in this country, but in America, I'm sure it was like, yeah, I think it was just generally available. Anyway, it's brilliant. Check it out.
And what's their website? Or
it's a really good question.
It's called Punk Planet.
I think if you go to, so I think they've still got their old website up, which I think is just punkplanet.com.
Nice.
And if you go there, it takes you to like the archive. Punkplanet.com, and it will take you to the Internet Archive,
Okay.
which you can then just go and scroll through all the issues.
Sounds good. My first bit is it was the WWE Royal Rumble over the weekend. So we mentioned before we watch AEW Wrestling, which is a different company, but every now and then we dip back into the WWE and watch the pay-per-views.
Yeah, I think only really for the Royal Rumble just was like the one that I always used to enjoy as a kid and stuff.
I mean, for those who maybe don't know what this is, the Royal Rumble is
everyone
a match.
knows what the Royal Rumble is.
Maybe not everyone knows exactly what the rules are. The rules are that it's a 30-man, and now female, but anyway, a 30-man match. Two people start, and then one by one, every 2 minutes, another person comes out.
It's always 2 minutes, I noticed. The women's one, I think sometimes it was about 30 seconds.
Yeah, they rushed it, didn't they?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a 30-person match. 2 people start in the ring, and then every 2 minutes, another person comes out. And you have to you can only eliminate someone by chucking them over the top rope. So it has the potential to go on for a very long time. Thankfully, this one didn't, because it wasn't that good.
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of other things that make it good, in as much as obviously when no one knows who's coming out next. So I think there's an element, and sometimes they bring out, people from the past or like surprise entrants and stuff. I don't know. I just remember it as a kid just being the exciting match. Like that's the one that you watch.
I mean, it's exciting because it builds itself on having like moments. So there's people who like basically you can only be eliminated if you are thrown over the top rope and your feet hit the floor, and that is really kind of exaggerated in the scope of how you can survive that. So some people are thrown over, but they land on their hands and they handstand back to the ropes and get back in. And there's people that jump onto the barriers and jump back into the ring and don't touch the floor.
Yeah,
but
it didn't used to be exaggerated when it was just like
Yeah.
big fat men.
Yeah,
they
true.
couldn't do, they just rolled over and then they were out.
But the other thing is also that you have people who come back, like Dave said, people who maybe haven't been in it for years and come back and it's like, oh my God. And last year, a person called Edge came back who hadn't been in it for about 10 years. Maybe less than that.
No, I think it was about that.
About
He
10
retired.
years.
I think he had a bad back or something. So he
Yeah.
had to retire.
So he was part of a tag team. He came back as a singles person. Came back last year in the Royal Rumble. Went on to have a match at He didn't win, but he went on to have a match at WrestleMania.
Really shit
which was
match.
so shit between him and Randy Orton. And it was just so painful. Anyway, he was the first entrant into this match. And I just had a sinking feeling from then that they were going to let him win. And this is a man that can't really do anything. He spent most of the
Well-
match... he can, but...
Yeah, he doesn't look. I mean, he's got a bit older. He's not that old.
He looks amazing.
He looks amazing, but also much older because he's only 40 something.
Yeah.
And he looks in his face. He looks like he's about 65.
His skin's hanging off a bit.
But he's yeah.
But anyway, so he spent most of the match laying on the floor. The one person that came out that was like, oh my God, he's from the past, was Christian, who was his
his
old
mate.
tag team partner. So he came out, they had a nice little cuddle, and they one by one start eliminating people. So that's all big and exciting and whatever. But yeah, Edge is
It
left
was not.
to the
It
end.
was not exciting.
Someone got not thrown over the ropes, but he got an injury earlier on, which is Randy Orton, who Edge had this match with at WrestleMania last year. And because he wasn't eliminated, surprise, surprise, when Edge was the last person in the ring, Randy Orton comes back, fully healed. But Edge still manages to win.
Yeah.
And so painfully, Edge will now have another match at WrestleMania, probably against Randy Orton, probably going to be a repeat of last year. It was really crap.
It was a bit crap. I think the women's one was a bit better, and I quite enjoyed. There was a match in it that was Kevin Owens against
Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns, and I really liked that match. But that was sort of just because they went backstage and started hitting each other with
And they did some big
balls
jumps
and,
off of
they
some
jumped off
stuff.
things, and I like that. But the thing that really stood out to me more than anything else, because like we say, we haven't watched that much wrestling in our lives, but very recently have been watching AEW, which is set up in a slightly different way. But WWE, with all of its money and what have you, have done this thing which I'm sure a lot of people have seen, but I'd never actually watched it before, where they've got screens instead of a crowd. They've got like loads and loads of TV screens with different people's faces watching the thing through a webcam.
Yeah.
I guess. And so you've got just loads of people sitting in their front rooms watching through a screen, and then they've piped in loads of audience noise, which the people obviously aren't making. So there's this, it sounds like, the thing that it reminded me of is when I was a kid and used to play like wrestling computer games, there was like this constant hum of the crowd, which was like exactly the same as what you'd get in that. And then every now and again if someone did a move, the person with the volume knob would turn it up a little bit and it would sound like people were cheering. It was really weird.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, I didn't like that at all.
It was a bit strange.
And it covered up loads of things as well. Someone did a rap halfway through, which was fucking dreadful, but you couldn't hear the music behind. You could hear him rap, but you couldn't. There was like a DJ guy with music. You couldn't hear it because the hum of the crowd and the sort of occasional like fake cheer that sounded like, like canned laughter used to sound in shit comedies. God, that guy who rapped was shit.
Oh my
Who
god,
he?
he was called Bad Bunny, and I looked him up. He's got like 30 million followers on Instagram. He must be a thing in the youth of today, maybe. But
I think they said he was the biggest artist in South
he's
America.
the biggest Latin artist at the moment, in the world at the moment, according to WWE. But he was absolutely fucking horrendous. But
He was no
one
Lou Diamond
teeny
Phillips,
tiny
so-
redeeming feature came later when he, for some reason, one of the wrestlers trashed his DJ's equipment for no reason whatsoever other than to bring out Bad Bunny to be like, what? Fuck you guys. And he did this jump off the top rope. He got up to the top rope really swiftly, like he knew what he was doing, which was quite impressive. Then he got a bit tentative as he jumped off. We thought, oh God, he's going to kill himself. And then he took out 2 wrestlers, and it was actually really impressive.
It was
not unlike...
I was going to say it's much better than the last one of these, where a celebrity in AEW, Snoop Doggy Dogg, was on AEW, and he tried to do the same thing. And Snoop Doggy Dogg is the longest man
He's a
I've
very
ever
long
seen.
man.
I think it's because he's so thin or something.
Yeah.
He's so long.
He's about 6.5 foot.
6.5 foot.
6.5? I don't know. He's quite tall.
But he did that, and it was just the most. I worried for his.
You
safety so
screamed,
much.
please don't die, Snoop Doggy Dogg, whilst we were watching it. And he didn't die, but he very nearly killed himself.
Oh God, it was ugly.
It was really sad. But he was very chuffed with himself. It
He
was
was,
really
and
nice.
so he should be. And I loved it. Afterwards, he looked so relieved, and that bit was nice.
Yeah.
He was like high-fiving people, and that was nice. But yeah, this guy was better than Snoop Doggy Dogg in the jumping stakes, but
his
much,
song.
much shitter than Snoop Doggy Dogg in the
Terrible.
music stakes.
So, Royal Rumble, if you want to go watch it, go watch it. We've spoiled it now. Bad Bunny, never listen to him. He's rubbish.
Oh shit! Yeah, spoiler alert. We're going to tell you who won all of the Royal Rumble.
I mean, we just told...
No, I know. It was
People
supposed
who-
to be a joke. Cool.
Anywho.
So my next bit of news is that Glenn Danzig is returning with a new movie.
Yes!
I don't know when. They've not released the date of it yet, but it's going to be called Death Rider in the House of Vampires. And there's a couple of little tidbits I've got about it. One is that Danny Trejo is going to be
Yes! Oh, this is perfect.
which is quite amazing. The other thing is that Glenn Danzig himself is going to be in it.
Yes.
And the other thing to bring
Was
up
he in
is
that?
just the fact that if you haven't seen Glenn Danzig's first film, Verotica,
Oh my God.
it is... I haven't got any words to describe what it is.
I think within 5 minutes, there's a woman with eyeballs for nipples.
Yeah, that's the best bit.
You see that quite early on.
Yeah.
It's
unbelievably bad, but I will say this: there's something about it that I liked a lot more than these films that people enjoy because they're so bad, like The Room and all those sorts of things. There's something about. I think it's the fact that I'm somewhat aware of Glenn Danzig's attitude to the world, and he doesn't have any sarcasm or sense of humour about himself whatsoever. So every single thing that he made in that film, and I presume made in this film as well, he was 100% into. That was totally his thing, that he thought he was making the greatest film of all time. But I mean, it's so inept. Beyond inept. I mean, there's things like the boom mic is in the shot for half of it and stuff like that. Like, there's some edits where it seems like they forgot to cut out some of the scene and stuff. It's like people stop acting and sort of stroll off the side.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable thing to see.
Didn't he at the premiere? He played it and he sat there beaming with pride, and the audience are just pissing themselves laughing. And he's like, "This isn't a comedy film."
No,
guys."
he literally. I think that was the only thing he said at the end. He just got the microphone and he said something like, "I didn't realise this was a comedy" or something. I'm not really sure. But again, like someone else saying that, you would, if it was like a sort of smart millennial or something, you would think, oh, this person's maybe wasn't in on the joke, but they've worked out that they can make some money from this. Glenn Danzig has no fucking idea.
And he's going to do it again.
He's done it again.
Oh.
It's also got Julian Sands in it.
Who's that?
Julian Sands is in loads of 80s horror movies and he loves to get his dick out.
Oh, God.
He's got a very handsome cock.
I don't know if I want to watch it. Well,
It's got someone from Blair Witch 2 in it. Oh, it's got Devon Sawa. He was in, so he's in Final Destination.
Okay.
He was big in like the 2000s, I think. Not big. He's in Idle Hands. Have you seen Idle Hands?
No, I haven't seen that.
Idle Hands is really good.
Danny Trejo though, that's pretty good.
I mean,
that's a
that'll do
pretty
it,
big pull. And what's he doing in that film? Poor Danny Trejo.
Well, I mean, he's been in a lot of probably worse films. Well, not worse. There's nothing worse than a Glenn Danzig film.
Oh. Side note: Danny Trejo makes donuts in LA. So
He doesn't.
I mean, he doesn't make them, but
Yeah.
he owns a donut shop. And it's really cool. They have donuts shaped like machetes.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Oh, they were really delicious too.
Yeah.
Although most of them weren't vegan, and you could only the vegan ones were all much sadder than the
Yeah, they
non-vegan
did
ones.
a shit, didn't they?
Oh, by the way, sorry, Glenn Danzig was asked for comment about this
Yeah.
film during a Q&A or something. and he just said everybody in the movie is a vampire, so you won't have to wait around to see the vampire. They're all fucking vampires. So,
thanks for clearing
that's
that
as
up,
exciting
Glenn
as
Danzig.
even he finds it. So,
Well, it's nice of him to clear that up for us.
he's a good boy, Glenn Danzig. He's not. He's a prick, but I love him. So.
Tries really hard. He's as tall as me.
Yeah, he's quite short. He does stand on rocks when he does band photos and stuff. He's always got tall band members. I think he sacked his band because they were too tall,
Oh.
and then he hired a whole new band that looked exactly the same, but they were like
A bit shorter.
a foot shorter.
Good on him. 5'3" is a perfect height.
I agree.
Right. My little next bit of news. Not going to dwell on this too long, but for many people who are listening will probably be aware of this Facebook group that turned up in the last 2 weeks. It was called the UK DIY Punk Scene Facebook group. Not going to dwell on it too long, but the idea was it was a community group that was going to get together different people from the punk communities in the UK. There was this introductions little section where everyone was talking to each other about what bands they're in and what gigs they've been to and what venues they might run. And it was actually really nice for about 3 days. Until it turns out 3,500 people can't all agree or get along. Surprise, surprise.
And now it doesn't exist anymore. Right?
Well, no, it does. So
Oh,
the person who made it, I mean, the poor sod who, imagine like you start this little group and you just don't think it's going to be that big because you think, oh, it's just going to be my mates that join it and extended friends, so however big that looks. Within 3 or 4 days, there was about 1,000, 1,500 people in this group, and yeah, then people start arguing with each other and really arguing with each other.
Yeah, I didn't really follow. I unfollowed it after. I think I learned something about myself a little bit, which I'm not very happy with. Is that after the initial thing, it was just like all your mates were kind of like given this space to sort of share all the things that they were doing, and then as soon as Johnny Oi from Basildon joined the group and started making jokes about his mother-in-law, I immediately just unfollowed it.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I feel a little bit like, oh shit, that's a bit of a pompous ass thing to do, isn't it, really? I shouldn't have probably done that. But then I should have done it because it turns out that the whole thing just turned into a shit show.
Well, yeah, it's self-preservation, isn't it? And I think there's so much positives that can be gleaned from it, and I think there's now people trying to save the group because the person who made it got a lot of information put together, and I think he was making a spreadsheet of all the different bands and where they're located and where the venues are, where the promoters are, and where the people who record music are. And there's this wealth of information that was being collected. So I think there was a lot of interest in keeping... Some people wanted to keep the group running, and now 2 other people have come forward and they're the admins and they're looking for people to help run it. But again, I think it's already... I mean, they've renamed themselves, they've turned it into a private group, but there's probably still going to be arguments. But that's kind of life, isn't it? Like, not everyone is going to get along.
I think it's very specific to social media as well, though, isn't it? We were having a conversation the other day about this, about how one of the reasons why a group like that works well is if everyone has to engage with it in order for it to work well, because otherwise Facebook won't show it to you on your feed. So if it's just, you said, wouldn't it be good if there was just a group where people could share the sort of positive things that they've done, and like if a band releases a record, they can post it on there, and then we just get that information without all of the bullshit. But the problem is there are groups like that already exist, but the thing is they don't come up on your Facebook timeline because the algorithms are all fucked up unless people are constantly feeding the thing. And the problem with social media is the only way that people constantly engage with something is if they're allowed to argue and bicker and have problems with each other. It's like no one engages with something if you just post like your band's new album. No one bothers going on there and sort of saying, oh, that's well good, nice one, yeah, good work, and then someone else says, yeah, I enjoyed that. Like, that just doesn't happen on social media anywhere, I don't think. It only happens when you post something shit and then everyone says, oh, this is a load of shit. And then someone starts arguing with them about it because they don't think it's a load of shit. And then suddenly everyone's engaged in it. And I feel like Facebook just sort of feeds negativity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's partly human nature, but I think it's definitely something that's set up to bring out the worst in us all.
Yeah. I think the other thing about this group is 3,500 people aren't all going to have the same opinions.
And they're going to be in different places.
And you wouldn't have been there was this idea at the beginning that it was going to be people of similar minds, and one of the admins tried to say, oh, this is for people that go to MPF and not Rebellion. And as if that was going to be defining, you know, the difference between one person's train of thought and another. And I guess there's more like old style punk bands that are Rebellion and newer. But it's such a
classist and ageist.
Yeah, and for a group that, you know, I thought was promoting inclusivity, very quickly it becomes this, actually, we didn't want all of you here. Yeah. And so the person who made the group said, oh, I'm going to just ditch this group and start an invite-only group. And that kind of showed, really, to me, probably what the idea of this group was at the beginning. Wouldn't it be nice if it was just all my mates and extended mates in one place? And that's fine, but that's not what UK DIY punk scene Facebook group is ever going to be, because DIY punk in the UK is so much more than just, you know, the bands you're friends with and the bands that they're friends with. So
but the punk umbrella, and this is a good thing in a lot of ways, the punk umbrella is so many different things. I mean, it's literally everything. You can do it, you can do anything and call it punk if you do it with a punk ethos.
Exactly.
And so therefore, of course, some people are going to have whole different opinions, completely come from totally different like places than others, you know.
And also, just to say, I don't agree with half those things, but that's fine. And I could argue with those people, but it would just be, to be honest, my opinion is I don't want to waste my life having arguments with people who are never going to change their opinions. They can have their shitty opinions somewhere else. But that's the part of having a big group with tons of people in it. You're going to have those shitty opinions. If you want to choose to call people out on it, which is probably the right thing to do, then that's fine. But also, I like a nice life.
Very complicated subject, isn't it? Which,
really
and again,
hard.
it's like, I think social media just tries to, or doesn't try. It just by almost default, it simplifies everything down to the nth degree. It's like I've done this thing and someone's done something that I don't agree with, so I have to do something about that. You know, whereas actually,
it's hard because then you don't want to be the person that's letting someone be horrible. But anyway, it goes on and on and on. The group still exists. Good luck to it. Let's see, you know, by next episode, who knows.
We had a discussion about a week ago where we were talking about what news stories we were going to do on this podcast, and you suggested doing it. This was before everything had gone to shit.
Yeah,
I was like, no, fuck that. We're not going to cover a bloody Facebook group on this podcast. And then 2 days later, the whole thing exploded into like the only thing anyone that I knew was talking about, and it was like, shit, I suppose we're going to have to. Yeah,
and we have gone on about a while, so I'll move on now.
Yes, well, my last piece of news is a very quick one, and it's what's turning into a weekly discussion of what Martin Appleby is up to. We see this is the third. I swear, I'm gonna ban Martin Appleby from the next podcast. No mention of him will be done. But I have to say this because this is about me as well.
I feel like we're in this like polite off at the minute because Martin, since our last episode, Martin has done a shout out to us
on his podcast,
and so now we're throwing it back to him. He's just gonna be like, for fuck's sake, I can't do it. I'm putting out things anyway. I'm giving it away. But
tell me about it. Well, he's gonna have to do something pretty special in the next 2 weeks.
That next
if
podcast
he wants to get in
about
episode number 4.
What are you bringing around our house, Martin? Anyway, sorry, I'm totally interrupting Dave.
But yeah, so very quick. So me and Martin are basically releasing a split poetry chapbook. Not 100% sure when it's going to be out. We're still just sort of putting the final touches to the poems and stuff. It's going to come out through his new publishing house called Scumbag Press, which we mentioned last week. And the chapbook's going to be called Fresh Words for Rotting Poems. All of the poems are going to be about punk, so it might hold some interest to you. I appreciate poetry is a bit of a hard sell, but I'm going to keep trying to sell it. This is pretty much all I do now, since we've been in lockdown.
Now I'm going to bring a little bit of the Norfolk news. Right, my little poppets. I've been scanning through the Eastern Daily Press website. I can't call it the EDP because Dave will get annoyed with me. It sounds like Britain's first group.
Tell me about it.
Anyway, in the last 2 weeks, it has been a bit dull on the EDP's website, but there is one story that got my attention. It's nice and quick, and I'll share it with you now.
Please do.
Well, David, would you hear it? Headline: Parrot ate so many crisps she got too fat to fly. This is on the news.
I wonder why you picked this story out.
Well, I relate to this poor little parrot quite heavily. Oh gosh. Bud the parrot ate so many crisps she became too fat to fly. She was so overweight she dropped to the ground when she tried to fly, but she has slimmed down now after a crash diet in her new home. Oh, see, you thought it was going to be bad.
I was going to say, it did sound a bit like animal abuse for a little while.
Well, she did end up going to the RSPCA because her original owners couldn't cope with her obesity.
No.
She is 22 years old.
Hold on, they fed her the fucking crisps.
I know.
Cheeky.
Well,
cunts.
I noticed they ain't said their name, so we can't go bang around their house and say, "Why'd you get my parrot so fat?"
I'd be right round there.
I know.
I bet they live just outside of Yarmouth.
No.
No.
Well, not judging by which... Anyway, we'll get to that RSPCA. I like this line. I think I relate to this quite heavily. Imagine that it says a different age. The 22-year-old bird was extremely obese thanks to an obsession with crisps. We all been there, bud. Don't you worry. Fucking hell. This is my life being flashed before me on the EDP. Chloe Shorten, who works at the branch at Ashwellthorpe near Wyndham, now owns Bud, and she said Bud arrived a few days before lockdown hit. She'd become too much for her owners, and they couldn't take care of her any longer. So let's see. She was extremely overweight, weighing in at 620 grams, which is more than 200 grams heavier than she should have been. 200
grams. 200 grams is a lot.
Yeah,
that's like 4 big bags of coffee.
200 grams.
That's much less than that.
No.
It's much less than that. Slightly more than a really small bag of coffee.
So, 620 grams, David. That's just over half a kilo, if you remember what a kilo is. No, kilo's 1,000 grams, David. You're doing well. Whilst it's tricky to tell from looking when a parrot is overweight, you could tell when she tried to fly, she would literally drop to the floor.
Oh.
Poor little Bud. I will try and find a way to put a link to this story on there because this parrot is a beauty. You wouldn't know she was overweight.
I've got so many questions. Is that it from the story?
There's a little bit more.
I want to know what her favourite crisps were, but I more want to know what did she used to talk about crisps? Because parrots talk.
Well, let's have a look. Let's see what the rest of this story says.
Right.
I have a feeling that none of that will be in
no.
it. She has the hearing of a bat and can detect a packet of crisps being opened from 4 miles away. I don't know how they ever tested that.
That is a fucking lie.
Well, the RSPCA have said it, so it must be true. So, she's now on a strict diet, and it includes fresh vegetables, nuts, and Bud's new favourite food. Get this, David?
Rice
bananas.
Cakes. Oh, fuck's sake. This has taken a horrible turn.
Shut up. Crisps were strictly banned from our house, so she couldn't get hold of any. But thankfully, she's quickly lost the weight, and now she's much happier. Love and life, can fly again, and it's great to see her soar around the house. She's such a funny character. She loves my husband and likes to serenade him with her rendition of the Addams Family theme.
What the fuck?
Oh, and listen to this. She likes to make an appearance on video calls, which always surprises people, and she often sometimes wolf whistles at people so that can take some explaining when I'm on a work call. Oh, this is beautiful. Wonderful.
Why somebody works at the RSPCA? What are they seeing animals through a webcam?
I ain't got a fucking clue, David. They're a bit more technologically savvy in Norfolk than you would have first thought.
I don't know about holding like a cat up to a webcam and having a vet look at it.
Aww. Little Bud the parrot, you fucking beauty. Too many crisps. Aww. We've all been there. Bud.
I really thought we were going to run out of Norfolk news stories.
No, I mean, it was a bit dry these last 2 weeks. But she come and saved the day, little Bud.
Good job.
Yeah.
Cool, let's have some more music. This next song is by some friends of ours, Butane Regulators. They're from Hastings. I was trying to think of a tidbit that I could tell you about Butane. They were the first, when I put some gigs on down here, under the guise of Sham City Roasters, they were the first band to ever play one.
Oh, that's nice.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Were they the first band we ever saw when we came to Hastings?
Possibly,
because
actually.
they supported Matilda Scoundrels at that gig we went to when we first got down.
I think the first band we ever saw was Cheap Dates, actually, but let's not.
Anyhow, so we're going to play, Butane Regulators with a new song, which I think is called Hirudania. I think I'm saying that right. I have absolutely no idea what that word means whatsoever. It's just come out on a brand new compilation, which is called Birds of a Feather Flock Together. On Grow Your Own Records. We've mentioned Grow Your Own Records on every episode of this podcast too, I think.
It's going well.
It's going good, isn't it? This is journalism. It's just come out, and it's a great song, and it's a really, really, really good compilation as well. You should definitely check it out. There's loads of cool bands on there. I haven't heard of a lot of them, but the ones I have, Dogma, who we played last week, Riviera Kid, they're from Kent, they're really good. Some band called Haste, Rabies Babies, they're really great. Lots of bands. So you should definitely check it out. And yeah, this is Butane Regulators with Haruda Nia.
We all know what the problem is. We know who the culprits are. We know where the evil lies. It's just easier to ignore it in a hope that it gets better. But our rights are denied. We remain subservient, blindly follow instigating puppets dangled from the elite. While we fight for the scraps that we have been limiting till our freedom is obsolete. We take it to the streets to put a stop to this exploitation of us, the poor. Our voices get louder, then the system fights back with the threat of martial law. Do they care about us? No! Are they bothered if we die? No! The questions that we should ask. Are we slaves? Are we robots? No, then why are we fucking shouting? Down with the ruling class! Go! Here it is ya! Here it is ya! Taxpayer, you're a Bible with faith in the system. Beat on you! Keep saving as your rights. They won't try and get home. Shit's on you! Look at your power. Nazis eating arrows of crap. Better shoot. Listen to the wind if you really think these guys give a fuck about you. They won't help you. But that's some right pretend they do. The only time they'll do that's when they want something from you. They don't care for you. You know they might depend on you. So put your trust in them as they slowly feed off you. So fuck them. Here it is ya. Here it is ya. Leeches sucking blood from millions. Stacks are still eating our life. Leave us numbers, disease, death, all they know that's how we live life. What mongers profiteering off themselves and human death. Kind of funny when it comes to profit. Real old people only flesh. They won't help you, but that's some might pretend they do. The only time they'll do that's when they want something from you. They don't care for you, you know they might depend on you. Put your trust in them as they slowly feed off you. So fuck them. Here it is ya. Here it is ya.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Punx podcast. We're now going to talk about something that is near and dear to our hearts, and that's 80s cheesy pop songs. Ages ago, some of our friends decided to challenge each other to make our top 10 80s songs.
Yeah.
And we ran away with it and took it far too seriously.
I think we're the only two who've actually done. No,
everyone did it.
Oh, did they?
But we took a long time to do it, putting a lot of limitations and rules upon ourselves. We wanted to share with you the journey and what our top 10s actually look like. So we did put ourselves a few limits.
Some of them are hard to describe.
Well, so basically, we have a huge love for pretty much anything that came out of the 80s, and that includes everything that came after punk, that includes everything that got tied in with New Romantics, that includes everything that was hardcore punk at the time. There's just, and within pop, it's ridiculously varied. So we put in really strict limits. It had to be cheesy 80s pop. to some
some of
limit.
mine are
Although
cheesy.
actually, yeah, it wasn't a very good limit.
So maybe it's worth saying that it's based on. So for the last couple of years, since when we were doing all of the Toxic What's It gigs that we put on and What's It Cool Fest, we started up a playlist, a Spotify playlist that we'd play basically between every band, and we called that a cheesy 80s disco. Again, not all of those songs are cheesy, but it's sort of, so that's where it came out of. But that was a very specific type of song.
Yeah, so to explain it a teeniest bit more, things like Journey, Don't Stop Believing, that's kind of like everyone knows that's a good song. You're not allowed to include it. You're also not allowed
We
to
had
include...
a long conversation about whether you could include that.
No, we can't. But it also tips on to you're not allowed to include 80s rock.
Yeah.
So we love Bon Jovi. You can't have Bon Jovi. So Living on a Prayer, everyone knows it's a good song, but it still counts as 80s rock, and there are better Bon Jovi songs that goes down a weird rabbit hole. So you
also,
couldn't...
it's definitely a pop song, but
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily made by a pop
But
band.
that's what I
suppose.
mean.
Yeah, yeah.
So like Pour Some Sugar on Me is a fucking good pop song, but it's also Def Leppard, and whether you call that good rock or not, it's not allowed to count. So that cuts away pretty much every great. I mean, we love Kiss, we love
Yeah.
Bon Jovi, Whitesnake, Def Leppard, all that kind of shit, and we couldn't include any of that.
And
But
I
that's
suppose-
good
and
because
it
we
probably-
needed limits.
It probably goes without saying that it doesn't include, obviously, really good. There's no Black Flag songs in our list. You know,
No,
there's
no,
a
no.
lot of extremely, extremely good music from the 80s.
Yeah,
Which could have been, and this is good music. I don't mean to suggest,
Yeah.
but it's just
Yeah.
no really great bands were allowed.
And then it's weird because then, to be honest, and we'll get onto each other's lists in a minute, within our own interpretations of it, I put upon myself some weird limits within. There's certain bands that were really good and they had far better songs than I've picked, but I've picked the most cheesy 80th one of the lot, or the one that represents to me the 80s. So maybe the one that I first heard growing up, or such and such and such. Anyway, we'll get onto mine in a bit. We've got a top 10 each. We're going to kind of go through each of our lists a bit at a time so as to kind of spread out the variety that we have.
And then ultimately whittle it down to one. Siobhan doesn't really agree with me on this, but we've whittled it down so that the last one we do is our greatest 80s cheesy pop song within the limitations that we've both set for ourselves, which
Yeah.
are slightly differing, I think.
I mean, I must add, my top 10, I've already changed one song this morning based on... I had a list of about 250, narrowed it down to this top 10. And within that, some of my absolute all-time favourite songs are not on this list. But this is like the list that represents the 80s to me. Oh, but it doesn't necessarily... It's really hard to
You
describe.
can see
So I
why,
probably
you can
won't
see
start
why
with me.
making this short list of 10 songs took us the best part of the day.
This was a day of talking about nothing else and a lot of
Furiously
arguing.
getting videos up on YouTube.
So anyway, we won't start with me because I've babbled on. So Dave,
Okay,
name...
so we're gonna do three
at a time.
We're gonna do three at a time. We'll go between ourselves. So So my first 9, and I think this is true of you as well. These aren't in any order specifically.
Oh yeah, these top 10s aren't like
Well, apart from
1 to 10.
apart from the one.
Depends on the day. Today, this is my number 1, but anyway, we'll get to it.
Right. So my first 3 are the Communards, Don't Leave Me This Way, Madonna, Papa Don't Preach, and Erasure, A Little Respect. So I surprised myself with one of these. I
Yeah.
didn't expect to put any Madonna songs in
Yeah,
this at all.
I'm quite shocked.
Well, but I ended up on my list. I think there was about 4. I can't tell you what they all were, but I ended up almost. I was confused between a bunch of them, a bunch of different ones.
Well, a bunch of different
Um,
Madonna songs.
Yeah, and when I heard Papa Don't Preach, I thought, yeah, shit, this totally encapsulates everything that I am sort of aiming for with this list.
Is it definitely? So that's definitely like that was your.
Papa Don't Preach was 100%. There was some other ones. There was Borderline was one.
Oh yeah, Borderline's good.
Oh god, I can't remember. I was just surprised to find how much I actually like Madonna songs when we listened to
Yeah.
them furiously on that morning when we were doing it. Erasure, A Little Respect is just one of my favourite songs ever. It's probably the song that I find myself just singing,
Yeah,
walking down the street more than
comes
any
on a lot in Morrison's.
It does, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's sort of been... maybe they've been inserting messages into my head when I've been buying my buyer life. And the Communards, Don't Leave Me This Way, was one that I immediately thought of, along with lots and lots of other ones. But when we actually listened to it, I was like, "Fuck me,
Isn't
this
that
song
song
is so perfect."
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Like that was a close. I mean, yeah, that was one of the last to be crossed off my list for sure.
And Jimmy Somerville, I think, to me, is like just an ultimate 80s figure, really.
he's a god.
In like both in sort of tacky 80s pop way, but also in like a really genuine way. I think
Yeah.
Bronski Beat were actually a really, really important band for gay
Yeah.
rights and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think he's amazing. Although we did buy his greatest hits, and it's got like the first 5
It's
songs
amazing.
are fucking brilliant, but then no, it turns into proper poo. Like about halfway through. The second CD is all sort of like
I'm getting
Barbara Streisand piano covers and stuff.
No, but they did that song. There's loads of
Yeah,
loads of lyrics were getting tattooed on us, based on my top 10 at least, and off that. And one of them was like, "The power within, we will use it to win,"
Yeah.
or something. And I was like, yes.
I thought you were getting that on your knee.
Yeah, I think so, with a
You
picture of
never
him in the
did-
middle.
Yeah, but you never did it.
Yeah, well,
It's no good.
everything's
saying
been
you didn't.
closed. And one of my other songs is going around the other knee. We'll get to him later.
So yeah, I think that's my first 3. I don't know.
They were
if
a
you
good
need to
first
say-
3.
Pretty
May I
solid.
just add, Madonna was a close on mine, but it wasn't any of those songs. It was
We had this argument the other day. I can't remember yours.
Express Yourself.
Yeah, you see, that didn't go near my
So
list.
good.
It's funny, isn't it?
So good. And Crazy For You for ballad. 'cause
That
that's
didn't
good.
go near my list either. I think
They
we
were the
found,
two Madonna
we
songs
found
of
this a
mine.
few times. There was a few people where like we agreed on them, but we were talking about different songs. We were like, yeah, that one's got to
Yeah.
go in, and then it turned out you hated the song that I thought had to go in, and vice versa.
Well,
so.
yeah, there's a few on your list that I think that about, but anyway, we'll get
there's
to them.
There's one I know you do, but go on.
Ooh.
We'll get to it. So.
Okay, so my first 3, I share one with you. Erasure, Little Respect, that's on my list.
I thought you picked a different Erasure song.
I thought that we had nothing in common about our list. It's the only one that we have that's the same.
I thought you picked Sometimes.
No, it's nowhere near as... I always sing it and think it's good, but A Little
Yeah.
Respect is perfect.
Yeah, it's a perfect
It's so amazing. And
anyway, but-
yeah, it's a weird emotion that it stirs up. Then I crossed one off. I had Starship, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now on
you weren't
there.
allowed that.
And
I feel like-
I've crossed myself off with that one because it was a proper 80s song from my past. But anyway, I'm not going to use that. So my first 3: Erasure, Little Respect. You've already mentioned that. I replaced Starship with Stacey Q, 2 of Hearts, and Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now. I can't even begin to explain how good these songs are. So Erasure, we've already done. Stacey Q. So this breaks my first rule that I set for myself, so I have already done it wrong. I wasn't going to allow myself songs that I've recently discovered, because obviously you can't know every 80s song, but recently we've been going on a lot of YouTube holes where you start on one song and you go for what's next recommended, and we've discovered tons of music, and we'll go into some honourable mentions maybe at the end if we have time. And Stacey Q doesn't quite fit in there, but it is something I only heard... I'm not gonna lie, probably I knew of it. First time I actually listened to it was on RuPaul's Drag Race. They did a lip sync for it, and it was amazing. I can't remember who did it now, but it was so good. And then it's also
It's on
in Hot
Sunny-
Rod.
Oh, it's in Sunny in Philadelphia.
And it's in
right?
Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So basically it comes up in all these wonderful little... and that's probably where most people I know who really love the song have heard it.
That's
so it's
where I
not
heard it.
it's not
Yeah.
genuinely 80s. It is 80s, but no one remembers it as an 80s song. People remember it as an 80s song that was used in something quite current. So originally I wasn't going to allow this, but it's so good. It's just so
They're
so
rules we made up. So
amazing.
It's easy to break them.
It's such a good little dance. And then so the other one I mentioned, Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now, is just insane. Who the twins are, I don't know, because they are
they're
not.
not
They're
twins.
clearly not related. The 3 of them.
I don't think I'd heard this song before I met you.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird. I feel like because we listen to it so much now, I feel like I know it like super well. But I'm pretty sure when you told me about this song as a sort of you know that one, and I'm pretty sure I didn't.
I just think it's such a banging
It's
like
brilliant,
80s ballad pop thing. I remember when I worked in my very first nursing job, the OT that I worked with said this was his favourite song ever, like in the world. And I always thought, God, that's really fucking strange. And I didn't know what the song was. And then I just gave it a few more listens and I was like, this song is so... like at first listen you might think, God, that's a shit song. Why is he not singing? Why are the words so
I don't
crap?
think you would.
But it's just not. It's so beautiful and it's so lovely. And the more it goes on, I just adore it. It's probably their only good song. I have tried to listen to other Thompson Twins. It's not as good. This song is just stand out. Really
See, to
good.
me, Thompson Twins, they were always in charity shop bins when I used to
And
buy
they
loads of
still
records.
are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. And I think I always just thought they were just a crappy, like Stockache and a Waterman type of band. or
Yeah.
something. And so I was quite surprised when
Just banging.
it's a good song. All right, my next three are Jane Weedlin, Rush Hour, Go West, We Close Our Eyes, and Pat Benatar, Invincible.
God, those are such good songs.
Yeah, they're
This
pretty
is
good, aren't
just
they?
this bit is going to go on for so long. I'm so sorry.
So I think it might be worth mentioning, you said about how we go on these YouTube holes. For a number of years, a lot of years now, we've ended up with this, a big part of our lifestyle is that every now and again, if we have a day off, we'll just get really drunk and turn on YouTube and see what happens,
Yeah.
pretty much. And it's always like music, really. And so a lot of these songs, like you say, we discovered a lot of these songs. And I feel like, although I didn't discover any of these songs specifically through those YouTube holes, I feel like these three are very...
That
West.
Go West song.
That Go West song, We Close Our Eyes. I don't know if this is the one or not in the video where he's wearing a dirty vest.
Yes, it
and
is.
And he's singing
so
into
sweaty.
he's singing into a wrench.
Yeah.
It's a very strange decision for a video. And he looks like... He's supposed to, I suppose, look like ruggedly handsome and like he's done a day's work. But he just looks like a weird, sweaty man. I don't know. It's a very strange decision, that video, I think.
Yeah.
But it is brilliant, all the same. And I just love that song. And I think I vaguely remember it from kind of hearing it, maybe not at the time it came out, because I think I would have been too young. But I think it was like one of those songs that I remember as an 80s hit from...
Yeah.
But whereas the other two, so the Jane Weedlin song, Jane Weedlin was obviously in the Go-Go's, and I always loved this song, but I'm pretty sure the first time I ever heard this song was a cover of it, which was in the 90s, mid-90s, this band called Joyrider, who I don't think ever did anything else. They did quite a cover of this song, like a rock cover, sort of, they probably would have called it a pop punk cover, I'm not sure. And it got in the charts, I think. It might have even got quite high in the charts. And... it's a bit different, but I think that's probably where I first heard of this song. And then like Jane Weedlin's solo album, I think, of which I think there's only one. There's certainly only one famous one, but the album that's got Rush Hour on it is fucking brilliant. I think it's one of the greatest pop.
It's got that
albums
I
ever
Can't
made.
Wear Fur and all
Yeah,
the other songs.
yeah.
There's some really good songs on there.
It's so good. And then Pat Benatar, Invincible, was a bit of... it came from left field a little bit because there's much more famous Pat Benatar songs. This one's from a film called The Legend of Billie Jean, which is a fucking brilliant film. Such a good film. And this song is just... it's the most anthemic song I can think of, really. And it's so good. And Pat Benatar is
Genius.
just brilliant.
Yeah.
And like her all of her songs, pretty much. I'm not so fond of the ballads, although I think that's probably just me. Mostly I don't... that's true of most of these people.
Well, didn't you cover her most famous ballad, or song at least, with your brother?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
We could play that, couldn't we?
No.
No? Sorry, I need to get your permission. You're not going to say yes.
Don't worry, it's not copyright. I just think Pat Benatar's brilliant. But I do think a genuine... and we had... this was another one that we had a real hard time... or I had a real hard time like narrowing them down. But I think we went through all of her songs when we were making these lists. And I was really trying to kind of work out what I thought was the best one. And this one is
the
just
most 80s.
such a banger. Yeah, I don't know if this is even the most 80s. I think probably Love is the Battlefield is the most 80s.
Yeah, maybe.
Because this is a bit more... it's very much a pop song, but it's a bit more like in the sort... it's more rock, probably, than Love is a Battlefield. I think.
Cool. My next three are... John Pass and Elmo's Fire. Duran Duran, The Reflex. I'm going to regret that. I'll go back to that in a minute. And this one, Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough. Depeche Mode, obviously, every song they ever did was better than Just Can't Get Enough. They are such a genuinely good band. But because they are such a genuinely good band, I wanted to go with the one that encapsulated the 80s the most to me. They probably don't even like Just Can't Get Enough because it got so famous and is so, not the same as all their other songs. Never Let Me Down is their best song. But for this purpose... I went Just Can't Get Enough because it's such a good 80s song.
I'm not sure that I would have included them anyway, but I would have for me I disallowed Depeche Mode because I saw them as being too good of a band.
I know.
But
this particular song
no, I agree.
is so 80s.
Unquestionably.
Yeah. And it's just and it's one that I always, growing up, I was like, that's one of my favourite 80s songs, so I put it in. Duran Duran, The Reflex is such a good 80s song. Hungry Like a Wolf is obviously better, but it's so overdone and I really like The Reflex. Planet Earth was probably my favourite Duran Duran song. So again, the Reflex is like pipping it just because it's got a stupid video. It's really like stupid. I love it.
I hate Duran.
Oh, I love Duran Duran.
I don't think there's
that didn't even enter.
No, not remotely. No, I think Duran Duran's best stuff was probably when they made
Say a Prayer.
No, I don't know what that. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, you
like
absolute
where they
bellends.
sort of made
So
like
shit.
like a. I don't want to call it a grunge album because that's pushing it a bit.
No!
They made a sort of like serious rock album.
Yeah, they
like,
did Ordinary World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's terrible.
No, it's better than all their 80s stuff. But I mean,
Okay.
it's all horseshit. But let me be clear. I hate Duran Duran.
You are. Anyway, so Duran Duran, the Reflex, obviously amazing. Notorious is another really good one, but again, really hard to decide. And John Parr's and Elmo's Fire is just no explanation needed. And again, that came into my life far too late. It was on a YouTube hole where Dave was like, "You know this song?" And I was like, "Do I know this song?" And it starts, and you're like, "Yeah, I really like it." The more I listen to it, the more I'm like, when it kicks into the chorus, it's just so like emotionally
you
amazing.
You haven't seen the film, have you?
No, I still haven't seen the film.
So that's kind of crazy because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people listening have never heard this song. I think unless you've seen the film, I think unless you've seen the film, you probably haven't heard it.
But this one, like, the melodies are insane.
Yeah,
like every little bit that he does,
song.
I'm just like, oh, my heart is so with you, Mr. John Parr. So those three, brilliant. Dave, next three. I can't, otherwise I'll talk about them all day.
All right, so my last three runners-up.
They're not runners-up.
Alphaville, Forever Young. Culture Club, Karma Chameleon. And Phil Collins, Susudio.
Yeah, that's her.
Now that one was a hard one, but it turns out that's one of my favourite songs ever made. And I surprised myself with that. So Culture Club, Karma Chameleon, I actually do remember when I was literally like 5 or something. I think that was... I used to really love that song as a really little child. My dad still takes the piss out of me now that I used to sing Boy George songs
you
to
poof,
him.
whatever.
And so yeah, and I still I think it was one of those songs that I didn't really listen to very much for a lot of years. And then it was only quite recently, not that recently, but a few years ago, I think I thought to myself, there's no way that song can live up to like how I remember it being when I was a little tiny child. And I put it on and it's such a fucking banging song. It's such a good song. Alphabetville, Forever Young, I just think I don't know how people feel about this song really, but it's a very emotional experience for me listening to Forever Young. And a couple of years ago, I don't know how many years ago, you bought me Alphaville's then new album.
Yeah.
It's probably 5 years old now, but
that was really good.
it was great.
Yeah.
And they've just continued. I sort of looked into their career a little bit, and because they're obviously just big in Germany, I guess, or probably mainland
big
Europe.
in Japan.
Germany.
Is it them?
I think that was them. And so they've just continued a career, and I suppose they're kind of like Germany's equivalent to like, I don't know, George Michael.
I was going to say,
well, except they're alive. And
didn't get any George Mike. Anyway, sorry. Oh my god.
I think you brought him up. Anyway, so yeah, I just love that song so much, and if you put it in a film, I'm probably going to like the film, even if it's shit. And I can't name any films that have got it in it, but I know it's one that's used in a lot. And it's like every time it just when it kicks in. I mean, I think I can pick. Is it in Stranger Things where those two little kids he like dances with a girl for the first time? I think
no. Oh god.
It's all right. Don't worry.
I can't remember what that is, but it's an amazing song. It might even be one of these. Oh no.
No, listening to you try and remember something is the shittest radio I can think of. Don't worry about it. And then Phil Collins Susudio. I thought of Phil Collins as a potential, and wasn't really sure. And I had a few sort of vague ideas of like what songs they might be. And so I started listening through them all. And I think Easy Lover is probably what I should have picked.
Easy Lover was
really.
so
But when
close.
I put on Susudio, I was blown away. I was just like, fuck, this is amazing. And now, if I had to listen to a Phil Collins song, then I would listen to Susudio.
Well, you're wrong, because it should be Easy Lover.
Well, that's as it may be, but I just think it's a banger. And I think as well, it's probably his most 80s pop sounding song. Like it's like ultimate like 80s synthy pop music. More so than
You've heard Easy Lover.
Yeah, but Easy Lover is alright, true. And I think the other one that I did think of was Invisible Touch by Genesis, but is that 90s? or is it 80s?
I think
Anyway,
it was probably 80s.
I decided.
It's definitely
to
on
go
someone else's
against it.
list, so I think it's 80s.
There's a handful of like those later Genesis songs, but I find it very difficult to. I find it difficult to say the name Genesis, to be honest, just because it's so shit.
Yeah.
It's so shit. So yeah, that's my three. Have you got any other opinions to throw at me? Yeah, or
No, they're
negativity
good.
to
I
throw
mean,
at me?
that's the worst Phil Collins song, but that's fine. It's not the worst Phil Collins song, but you know, you pick one.
Also, ultimately, Phil Collins is one of the worst men.
Yeah, it's hard to pick him.
That was a hard one.
Yeah.
He divorced his wife by fax.
Yeah.
He's a prick.
Such a knob. He's actually quite awful in the Easy Lover video, anyway. But anyway.
Oh my god, he's so
Yeah.
over dramatic and he's horrible. He's in loads of those Genesis videos. He's like he's trying to be funny. And
Let's take it from the top, guys.
Oh god.
Ugh. Right.
Sorry.
My next three. These are some of my absolute favourites, and they're still not my number one, which is mad. John Farnham, You're the Voice.
Yeah.
Oh my god. OMD, or Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, Enola Gay, and Flock of Seagulls, Wishing, brackets, If I Had a Photograph of You. Oh my god. So that Flock of Seagulls song is really early on in my memory. I Ran is amazing, but Wishing, or I Had a Photograph of You is just like, it's just so good. I don't need to explain it much, it's brilliant. OMD and Enola Gay is the first, I really remember this from really early on in my like childhood. I don't know why, but that little synth intro, because this is 1980, so this is really early in British electro, yeah. And like OMD were like one of the first near the beginning of all that. So that little synth riff is just so good, and from then on I just think the entire thing is brilliant. And it's about the dropping of the atom bomb, which is a bit sad. Yeah, Enola Gay was the name of the plane. Yeah, who dropped the first bomb. So that's not very nice, but the song is amazing. And then John Farnham, You're the Voice, is basically what's going around my other knee when I get my knees tattooed.
So you're going to have Jimmy Somerville on one and John Farnham's face on the other? Well,
maybe not. I'm going definitely... I mean, I'm going to have to get faces. It's just the lyrics. That crappy Jimmy Somerville song, amazing. And then John Farnham... We're all someone's daughter, we're all someone's son. The way that he screams it, I'm just like, that's so amazingly shit. I absolutely adore it. So it's basically my like total like going into battle song, like
which you often do.
It would pump me up. So that's strong up there.
Yeah, I mean, John Farnham, You're the Voice, definitely on any other day would have probably made mine as well, to be honest.
Should we do our... Oh yeah, sorry.
But I think... there's a few other John Farnham songs that I think I might maybe not prefer, and they're definitely not as iconic, and I can't even name them. But he's on a lot of film soundtracks. He does a couple of songs on the film Rad, which is like a crappy 80s BMX thing.
Is it one called like Thunder in Your Heart? Oh, like Lightning in Your Heart.
Yeah. And Break the Ice is one.
Yeah.
Break the Ice is one from... I think that might be from a different film. There's a couple of films. He might be... Does he do the songs for BMX Bandits? I don't know. Anyway... yeah, I couldn't really pick one. And I did sort of think, to me, You're the Voice, I put in the same place as like Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, well, you think it's too good?
I decided it was too rock. But again, on another day, I would have not thought that and put it in, probably.
So I'm wondering, before we do our absolute ultimate one, should we do some of our honourable mentions while I remember them?
Yeah, we can, if I can get them up.
Because that's just reminded me of a few that I should have put in that I didn't. I'll go over them really quickly. There's no Prince. He's too good.
Prince is too good, definitely.
Prince wasn't allowed. He's too good.
Yeah.
Van Halen, Panama. It's too rock, but it is my absolute 80s song. Like, that's the one that I drive really fast to, like a idiot. There's a Family Guy sketch, which is basically my life when I listen to it. I didn't realise. That's really embarrassing. There's so many songs that haven't been included here that obviously should have been.
Yeah.
But
I forgot about one of my rules that I gave myself as well.
Yeah.
I didn't allow myself two by the same person.
Oh yeah, that was a rule.
Or even like if bands was linked in some way. So for example, Yazoo Don't Go could have been in there, and Bronski Beats Small Town Boy could have been in there, but they were both too related.
Too related to what you already had.
And there's loads of... We've already gone through all of the Madonna things. One of the ones that I was a bit on the fence about was Billy Joel. I really liked one Billy Joel album, Along.
Yeah.
But I decided that just was too much.
I've got two more. So these two are ultimate 80s songs that we couldn't include because they're too new to me. One is The Outfield, Your Love. It is perfect, but it's probably too rock. Actually, it's probably not, because they weren't that well known and they're not that rock. They were an English band that never got famous here, got famous in America. Appeared on loads of BMX videos, and now everyone cool thinks it's a good song, and it's a fucking amazing song.
Yeah.
And the other one is, there's a song called Electric Blue by a band called Ice House. Is it Ice House?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh, I might be getting
They're
it wrong.
Australian, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's amazing. It's so good, but it's too new to me, so we couldn't include it. They're all my honourable mentions for now. I could go on forever.
I had a
we
huge
have.
meatloaf problem because I wasn't sure, because there's a lot of meatloaf could have gone on there, but Dead Ringer for Love would have been, but I
Yeah.
decided that was too rock.
That's true.
There's a few random ones that we found on YouTube holes that I think are worth mentioning. Scandal, The Warrior.
Oh,
Listen to that if you can. DeBarge, Rhythm of the Night. That's
so
pretty
good.
famous already, I think.
Nearly put that in.
Kenny Loggins, Danger Zone. That was on my possibles. Fire Incorporated, Tonight Is What It Means to Be Young. That's from a film we talked about last week.
In fairness,
actually.
we're probably going to discuss that film in the
Yeah.
future.
And Jermaine Stewart, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off. That's a fucking big banger.
But anyway,
But yeah, and one that really surprised me that almost made my list, and you were so shocked about, and you have every right to be, but it was really close, and I was surprised because it was another one I just thought of and chucked on YouTube, and then thought, well, this is a possible, was the Bee Gees with You Win Again.
and then I thought, what am I doing in this relationship? That's such a bad move. I'm so glad it didn't end up on your
No,
list.
it didn't, but it was. I would say it's probably about 13 or 14 on the. Yeah. Anyhow, so we're going to do our best song of the 80s ever. Mine is "When You Were Mine" by Cyndi Lauper.
Perfect.
And
Perfect
it is a
song.
Prince song, so strictly speaking, maybe I shouldn't be allowed it. But I think the way that Cyndi Lauper does it is extremely 80s sounding. It's from her first album. That album doesn't have a bad song on it. It's just such a perfect album. She's a perfect human.
Is that
it's
the
a
album
perfect song.
She's So Unusual? Is
Yeah.
it that one? Yeah.
And just everything about this song is completely perfect. And I will say this, the Prince version of this, which is a really early Prince song, I think, is not very good. I don't really like it. It's kind of, it's more like when he was sort of doing more like funky, rocky stuff. But whereas Cyndi Lauper's is just like this fucking big bollock ballad, like just huge, emotional thing. And yeah, and it's brilliant. Two tidbits. We saw Cyndi Lauper live about 3 or 4 years ago, and she played this, and it was one of the greatest live performances I've ever seen in my life.
Perfect.
And also, Harmar Superstar covers this on one of those AV Club covers things where they all pick different things. Which actually, maybe we should do that on one of these podcasts. We should go through some of them because there's some great covers on there. We only started watching them because Guar are always on it, and they always cover, like, they did West End Girls and all sorts of things. But yeah, Harmar Superstar's version of this is quite similar to the Cyndi Lauper one in a lot of ways, and it's really good. He's got a really good voice for it. It works really well. But yeah, I just think this song is perfect. It's one of my favourite songs of all time.
It's a
Full stop,
beauty.
really.
Sweet. So, I can't call it my top
Yeah, you can.
because I'm still not even sure this is my top 10. This is my top 10 today. But the only one I've not mentioned, this was the first song I put on the list, so that's why I'm saying it as number one, because it was the easiest to write down, and you've already mentioned it so many times. It's Bronski Beat, Small Town Boy, because it is for the same reason OMD is amazing, that wonderful synth intro that's just so influential, so interesting and cool, and Small Town Boy did exactly the same thing. Like, it's such an incredibly written song. It's been sampled by tons of people since, and then it was about something so good, like Dave touched on earlier. This was Jimmy Somerville growing up in Scotland at a time where it was just not okay to be gay, or it was not accepted in the way that it should have been, and the video tells that story. The words tell this story of just a young boy struggling with his sexuality and not being accepted by his family or by anyone around, and the video does the same thing, and it's just so iconic. The second I hear it, I'm just thrown into that kind of 80s cheesy pop disco, but it's genuinely good. So again, query whether I was really allowed it on this list.
Oh no, yeah.
But I'm going with it just because of the influence that it had on other music, and it's just perfect.
Yeah, I think I was reading something about probably shouldn't say this name on this podcast, but I was reading something about Morrissey, about some of the Smiths songs and the sort of and the fact that those Smiths songs, and it's really similar for this as well. These songs were written, and like if you watch the video for Small Town Boy, it's not subtle at all. And these songs were written in a time where homosexuality had been illegal, like 5 years earlier, or something ridiculous, something absurd, or maybe slightly more than that, but not very much. And it's just like the bravery of people like Jimmy Somerville and like Frankie Goes to Hollywood were big on this as well. I just think this, it blows your mind really, like how different the world was that they were doing this stuff in that maybe now looks relatively tame and kind of normal and stuff, but just incredible. I think he's an incredible person, really.
Yeah, really brave, really out there. And also the way I really liked the story he put out there, because you've got Frankie Goes to Hollywood who are like in your face, like don't give a shit what you think, this is like out and out in your face, whereas this was a really sincere, from someone who's clearly like vulnerable and not actually screaming like this is how camp I can be. It's just like I just want to like someone and that be accepted by other people and not to be bullied and told that I'm wrong. And it was just really interesting because I remember watching it really young and thinking, wow, that's incredible. Even then, and how different it would have been in the 80s, like you say, just after it was made legal, which is crazy to think it ever was. So yeah, that's the 80s top 10. It was a bit of a waffle, but
isn't it always?
It's so hard. This was a long day of discussions, as you can probably tell.
I think we both had like existential crises.
Oh gosh,
I guess we were going through it already.
It was just like screaming from the other room, no, I've crossed it off, I'm going back. So anyway.
Cool. Well, a more professional outfit might play one of the 80s songs that we've just talked about, but we are not a professional outfit.
Yeah, we can't afford.
We are going to play some music from 2019 instead, which is a long way from the 80s. This is a song by an awesome band called Brazen, Hussy. They're from the south coast, according to their internet presence, but I'm pretty sure most of them live in London, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
It's from an EP called Not All Men that came out on Hell Hath No Fury Records, like I say, in 2019. The song is called Swallowed It, and it's fucking great. Here's Brazen Hussy.
Welcome back to Breakfast Punx podcast. That was Brazen Hussy, really good. So now we're going to review a trashy film.
And action!
Pictures up.
Rolling!
This is trash. This is sweet, sweet trash.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
I love what I see.
Leave the auditorium. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Lovely soundbite as always, Dave. Well done. So this week we watched the wonderful Lust in the Dust.
Hit it, Dick. These lips were made for kiss, and these hips were made for bliss, and these arms were made for squeezing you tight every day. Oh, lay every night. These lips were made for taste, and my time wasn't made for waste. And so I'm gonna show you how it's done just for fun. Anyone wanna come? These lips were made for kissing. Take a sip, and you'll know what you've been missing. You'll flip when this tamale wants to make you stay every day. Olay, every night. What you say? Every day. Olay, every night. We can play every day. Olay, every night. Well, alright.
You people got a strange sense of humor.
Oh my god, this film was brilliant. So, a little bit about the film. Lust in the Dust. It's a 1985 Western comedy film starring Tab Hunter, Divine, Cesar, and some other people. But I'm not going to name all of them. And it was directed by Paul Bartel, who's done a few things. You did name them earlier.
Yeah, well, he's an actor as well as a director. So he did Eat 'Em Raoul, which is quite a famous, like really early 80s comedy. And I think he did some other stuff, but he's acted in. I think he was married to Mary Warrenoff, who's quite a famous like B-movie actress, and they were in a lot of films together. And I'm pretty sure, if nothing else, I think he was in Chopping Mall.
Yeah, that's it.
Where shopping costs an arm and a leg.
So that kind of gives a little bit of a clue as to how serious this film's going to be. So Divine plays a character called Rosie Velez. She is a dancehall girl who's lost in the desert and is helped to safety by gunman Abel Wood, who's played by Tab Hunter. In the town of Chile Verde, at the saloon of Margarita Ventura, a word of a treasure in gold brings Abel into conflict with outlaw Hardcase Williams and his gang. Basically, it's amazing.
They go on a bit of a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. It doesn't really matter about the plot at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's really thrashing out the plot quite a bit. There's some gold in this little place called Chile Verde, and it turns out everyone's kind of making their way there to try and find this gold. And along the way, it's a lot of lust. It's a lot of drinking.
Like, everyone is hungry for sex in this film.
It's a horny film.
Yeah. I mean, Divine is the most horny of the lot, probably, but I mean, it's wonderful.
Divine is fucking amazing. So there's this one, we could talk about loads of things, but there's this one scene right at the beginning, and it's kind of bad taste in so many ways. Divine's walking through the desert, or kind of the western countryside, as it were, and she's with her little donkey, and
she's got a really small donkey.
She's got this tiny little donkey that she doesn't fit on. She keeps falling off. And then Divine finds this gang of hard bastards come and find her, and they are horny. Surprise, surprise. And they're saying to her, "Oh, thank God we found you. My men have been needing their libido dealt with for ages." And Divine's going, "Oh no, that's so bad. Please don't. Are you going to ravage me? Don't do that to me." And then you see a scene where basically she's had them all. And
before she has them all, she says, "Violate my most intimate parts."
Which obviously is, they thought they were going to have it, and she had them.
It does. They sort of turn the tables in as much as Divine's like hungry for more, and they're all completely like collapsed and like.
I think she says, "Who's next?" And I thought it was meant to be. I don't know. It's an awful thing to laugh at. It's meant to be a sexual assault, and she totally owns it.
I mean, it's not. Yeah.
So that's pretty much.
Well,
right near the beginning.
Well, that is the very beginning. But there's a small person who's part of the gang. I mean, it's such like classic sort of 80s like bad humour. Basically, this entire film. It's not really an outright comedy as such. It's just sort of like really light-hearted and sort of witty and ridiculously over the top. And this gang, who are like the hard guys, there's a small person, and he's on a really tiny donkey. And so when they come, they sort of show this, like, you know, really sort of ominous music is playing, and they show the first guy, and he looks tough, and the next guy looks tough, and then it just goes. It does that classic sort of 80s thing where it goes over and there's nothing there, and then the camera just goes down and there's kind of this little guy. Mm-hmm. But he decides that he wants a little bit more in the middle of the night, and so and she breaks his neck.
Well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
I've written. Broke midget's neck in surprise cunnilingus. Yeah, because that's pretty much what happened. I've also remembered when the mass sexual bit is done, all of the gang are lying there tired, and Divine's fine. Does anyone like to try again? Yeah. So that's the kind of humour that's in this.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it is just. for me, like this type of film, I wouldn't really know what to call it exactly, but it's like it is the perfect film to me. This kind of tone of movie. Like I say, it's not really like it's not like a comedy in the context that everyone's like sprouting gags and like there's any sort of comedic set pieces or anything like that. It's just sort of like everybody's just constantly witty and everything is just a bit stupid and everything is really over the top and it's the perfect vehicle for Divine.
Yeah.
Like there's no one made for this sort of thing more. Like just every single thing that comes out of her mouth is hilarious.
It's just perfect.
And just sort of tongue in cheek.
Yeah. I've got my favourite line. I think it might be on yours as well. She's trying to get a drink at the bar, and they're like, "Oh, I think you've had enough." And she goes, "I know when I've had enough. I fall on the floor." And I was like, "Oh, I love you." There's one of the other favourite bits, just to show how lighthearted and silly it is one of the main guys at the saloon gets shot, and the woman who owns the place, who seemed to have had quite a close friendship with him, decides to break into song. It starts as a wail straight into his crotch.
Brilliant.
She's singing into his dead crotch for a long time. Yeah. And then she does this like dance where she's like got a man's hands from behind and she's like rubbing herself, but it's the dead guy. And he's just like lying there blue and she's just rubbing herself with his hands and it's like, what is going on? But it's so brilliant, it's so wonderful. It's really lighthearted considering how ridiculous it is. There's not really a plot, but it does have an ending and it does all kind of make sense.
There's a brilliant
not so badly made.
Divine and the main woman in it, who I thought was Linda Blair, but isn't at all Linda Blair.
No, it's someone called Lainey Kazan.
Yeah, they have a punch up in the bar at one point, and that's fucking majestic. Like, just Divine, just sort of. And
Divine's beautiful in this, painted really well, and looks pretty much. They're meant to. I don't know, gives it away a bit, but turns out these people are sisters. The two main girls,
I forgot about that.
Main characters, and they really look similar, and that's not like a slight on either person. They just look beautiful.
Yeah, Divine's absolutely lights up the screen and just sort of everything.
Yeah.
It's probably worth saying one of the reasons why we picked this film was because earlier in the week we actually watched Polyester, the John Waters film, in more of just because in a casual way, not in a let's watch a really shit film for a podcast way.
Because it's not a really shit
because it's not a really shit film. It's a great film, and obviously it was I think the only John Waters film I'd never seen. Had you seen?
Oh really? Who's seen Serial Mum?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that yet.
Polyester's great, definitely worth a watch. So Polyester is Divine and Tab Hunter, who's the main guy in this as well. And Tab Hunter, I think, was a 1950s sort of heartthrob.
Yeah.
Who had been in loads of sort of big films, but his career had obviously by the 80s had dwindled, yeah. And so he and John Waters was amazed that he managed to talk him into doing his film, which is all. It's not quite as filthy as most of John Waters. It's certainly not as filthy as his earlier films. It's a bit more middle of the road.
It's the first mainstream, or aiming for mainstream film.
But there's a lot of this is very subversive, and so to get someone like Tab Hunter at the time in it, but it turns out that Tab Hunter was in the process of producing this film, and when he worked with Divine on that, they were looking for they just needed to fill a part, like the main sort of female lead in this movie that he was working on, and he was so impressed with Divine's abilities, acting abilities and stuff, that he just cast her in this. And to be honest, if it was anybody else in that role, this film would be half as good, probably. I mean, it's great, but it definitely wouldn't be quite as incredible. One of the really interesting things about this film as well is that I think the three women, or two women and then Divine when she gets there, are sort of supposedly prostitutes, I think, of sorts.
Yeah, they're selling themselves.
But one of them is very elderly.
Yeah.
And that's I think the one that sort of Tab Hunter kind of falls for a little bit.
He falls for her in a weird way, like he likes her.
But that part, which is, and her name is Big Ed, although she's tiny and just an elderly woman, was supposed to be played by Edith Massey, who is one of John Waters' regulars, who's that lady with no teeth, who's wonderful and everything.
Yeah, if you've seen in Flamingo, she's the egg lady. Yeah. If you see her in Female Trouble, she's got like a latex tits out cat suit on, and she's 60 years old.
She's
when she
fucking glorious. But she was supposed to be in this film, but she died. She screen tested for it apparently, and then died in between. But I have to admit, when I was watching this, I knew that because I looked it up quickly, and I think had she been that part,
it would have been amazing.
This film would have been so good. So good. There's a handful of amusing things that people say. I think we might have covered most of them. The piano player's name is Red Dick because he's got ginger hair. When somebody thinks that one of the guys has gone a bit mad, he says, "This man's oats aren't all in their feed bag." Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a nice one. But yeah, basically, this is definitely a trashy film, and I think we did want to kind of not always do the worst possible films that we could find. But this is not in any way a bad film.
No.
I would say this. I think this is fucking brilliant.
It's got a solid 6.5 on IMDb. It's probably going to be the highest rating of any of our films we actually watch. And its only critique from the first little critics review I can see is that halfway through it tries to stick to the story or resolve the story, and we weren't interested in the story. Oh, good. But no, it is. I actually really, it's such an enjoyable film. It's worth going to find. We found it online.
Yeah, completely by official channel.
Of course, an official channel we found this on.
Something else we missed, sorry, just quickly before we, is the songs.
Oh, there's many good songs.
There's some songs. Well, there's only 3 actually, but it feels like this is more or less a musical. And actually, one of them I don't think is even in the film.
It's just the
at
first,
the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so before we talked about this, you will have heard a little bit of Divine's song. Divine's song is just fucking brilliant.
So good.
These lips were made for kissing.
Yeah.
So good.
And there's so many thrusts in the with the words, and just Divine's face just tells so much.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's just a brilliant film, I think.
So good. I would rate it very high.
Well, let's rate it then, shall we?
Ooh.
So what are you going to give it out of 10?
Well, so thinking back to the fact that I gave Snake Out of Compton something like a 7, which is mad. So I'd probably like to recall that 7 and reduce that to a 5.
This is why I kept things alone.
Yeah, I know. So this is probably a 7.5 out of 10. Because there's so much better trash, but this is really good.
I'm not sure that I agree that there's any better trash. For me, this is a 9, easy.
Ooh, okay.
This is, like I say, this style of film, and I can't describe exactly what that style is, but all these films are from like the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
There's a certain tone of film which is just 100% what I love, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I think it's like light-hearted, good humour, still got some standout ridiculous jokes, lots of actually well made. Yeah, like it wasn't poorly made. There wasn't loads of bad.
It had a budget of $2.5 million, which I think in 1985 is probably, it's not mega. But...
I mean, for that money, maybe it wasn't that good, but it's not a badly made film. It's actually really easy to watch. It's not like some shitty films that you have to really plod through. This is really easy to watch. Yeah. So okay, 8. I'll go 8 out of 10.
All right. I'm not trying to get you
no, that's fine.
On. So we are now going to play a nice old song for you. Again, every episode I'm going to try and find a band who aren't really represented on Spotify or whatever. Again, probably mostly from the 90s, as this band are. This is a bit of an unusual one. This isn't a UK band, and it's not even really a band who were sort of unknown or anything. But I was quite surprised to find that none of their music is actually on Spotify. I think you can find it on YouTube and things like that. But this band was actually on Lookout Records, so you would figure that they would probably be remembered much more than they are, and they're really not. It's a band called Go Sailor. They have only one album, and I think it's a collection of previous 7 inches, but the album came out in 1996. The song's called Ray of Sunshine. It's barely a punk song. In fact, I don't think it is a punk song really, but it's just, I love it. It was on the first Lookout record sampler that I ever got. It stood out because it was so not punk, and it's so twee, and it's just like a sort of a really lovely little indie song really. And it stood out a bit because of that. But the band is made up of the main person in Go Sailor is Rose Melberg, who's gone on to have a bit of a solo career, but she was also in the Softies, who I think some people might have heard of, and a band called Tiger Trap, who again you might have heard of. And I'm pretty sure that maybe the drummer was in Crimpshine. They were kind of people that were around the San Francisco and Berkeley punk scene. But yeah, and I just absolutely love this song. I just think it's absolutely beautiful, and I hope you do too. It's Ray of Sunshine.
Her melody wants to desperately cry down me tears, 'cause she's so far from here. She's a ray of sunshine, my only ray of sunshine. Yellow hair,
Breakfast Punx podcast. That was Go Sailor. That's a lovely song. It's
Oh,
very different
yeah.
to all the other stuff. Yeah, lovely and twee.
I used to always put that on every mixtape I ever made when I was a teenager.
You put it on one of mine.
There
Probably
you go.
not the first one, but yeah.
Oh, lovely story.
Oh, lovely. Cool, so that pretty much rounds up episode 3. Last episode we did at the end say if anyone wanted a shout out,
Oh,
then
yeah.
we would do it. I think we said it a bit off the cuff.
Hang on, we
but-
even got an email.
Well, a whopping great 2 people want a shout out. So first shout out is to Liz in Leeds.
Hi,
Thank you
Liz.
very much. Hi there. You're always so nice to
And
us
Ben,
about this.
and Ben.
Ben, yeah, actually. You're both very lovely and always say nice things to us. So thank you very much. Your support is very appreciated.
Very much.
And the other shout out is from Ashley in Australia. You are legit our only Australian fan, I
so
think. I mean, Dave will read out your email.
So the email title is "Your number one Aussie fan says hey," and I can assure you, I know this by looking at the stats on our on our little podcast thing, that you are the only Australian listener.
Whoop, whoop.
But who knows? Maybe we're playing the Cutaways. Maybe
Yeah, they're
maybe
Aus-
some Australians will check us out as a result of that. In which case, hello.
Hello, Australia.
Hello, how you doing? So Ash's email says, "Hello, Team Hastings. Thank you again for another fab podcast. It seems weird, but if I put it on the car, it's like you are both in the backseat yapping away. The stolen spud story made me cry laugh for so long." So I've forgotten the stolen spud story, to be honest. I know it was Norfolk based.
Yeah.
And could I please request a shout out? I have no idea what you're talking about most of the time, but I absolutely love listening.
Aw.
So thank you so much. And if you want to email us, we will read it out awkwardly, as I've just done. Our email address is shamcityroasters@gmail.com. Anything you want, really.
Yeah, any ideas? Any questions?
Insults.
Oh,
whatever.
tell us what your favourite 80s songs were.
Good
And we'll
films that we should watch.
Yeah, tell us what your favourite 80s songs were and we'll tell you that you're wrong.
Well, you probably won't, because we'll probably have changed ours and we will agree with you.
We'll at least decide whether you're very wrong or whether we're jealous and should have put it on our lists.
Yeah, just
But-
be careful. Don't badmouth Jimmy Somerville, or we'll block you from
Yeah.
our lives.
Oh, so anyway, that's probably enough for this week. So we'll end with a song. This is a song called Fool by the band Sewer Cats, or The Sewer Cats. They're from Manchester. They are booked for What's It Cool Fest this
Yes.
year. Fingers crossed that actually
Oh,
happens.
you know what? We never said this. So we announced the first batch of bands for What's It Cool Fest, and the tickets went on sale a couple of days after our podcast. It sold out in 24 hours.
Well, that's crazy. Fingers crossed it happens. Oh
So
my god.
yeah, so if you wanted to come, if you listen to this song and you think, "Oh, I'd love to see the Sewer Cats," you can't.
Tough shit, you can't see them at What's It Called. But hopefully if What's It Called is happening, then everyone will be playing. So anyway, this is the Sewer Cats. They're from Manchester. This is a song called Fool. It's from their Zelda EP that came out in 2020. And they're really awesome. So this is it. The Sewer Cats with Fool.
And we'll see
And
you
yeah.
in 2 weeks' time.
See you in 2 weeks' time. Ta-ra!
Bye.